Howdy, folks. Today we're heading down to Music City to talk about building a portrait photography business in one of the most creative cities in the world. From musicians and actors to entrepreneurs and corporate professionals. Notice how I actually managed to pronounce the word entrepreneur correctly this time. But anyhow, what does it really take to carve out a successful niche as a portrait photographer in a market like Nashville, or any market for that matter? And how do lighting, branding photography, and client experience all come together to shape a modern headshot business? That's exactly what we're diving into today, right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, the show where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. We've spent literally hundreds of hours interviewing some of the most respected photographers on the planet, giving you access to real-world knowledge and expertise you just won't find anywhere else. And as always, I'm your host, Kirsten Lutz, and if you enjoy free podcasts and YouTube content like this, there are a couple of easy ways you can support the show. You can grab yourself some official Camera Shake merch over on our store, camerashakepodcast.com. Hoodies, tees, mugs, the whole lot. Or if you're feeling extra generous, you can buy us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us keep creating more episodes like this one. Absolutely no pressure though, but your support generally makes a difference. Right, without further ado, I'm really excited about today's conversation. Joining me today is Nashville-based portrait and branding photographer Jeff Carpenter. Jeff is the founder of Ready Light Media and is known for his work in headshots, personal branding photography, and commercial portraiture, as well as teaching photographers how to master lighting and build a successful portrait business. Jeff, welcome to Camera Shake, man.
Hey, what's going on? That was a great intro, and I can't wait to hear what we talk about. So, no, it's I'm very happy to be here. We met at Imaging USA here in Nashville. Well, I guess I live in Franklin, so I'm about 20 minutes south, but Nashville, greater Nashville area, as they will say. So, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, and I can't wait to get this conversation rolling.
All right. Jeff, I read about you because the research that I do, clearly, that you fell into photography rather sort of by accident, more or less.
I did, yeah. So I moved to Nashville tail end of 2007, beginning of 2008 to finish up college. I proudly did not move to Nashville for music, which is very rare. I was kind of music adjacent. I went to school for audio production. You wouldn't know it as how hard it was for me to set this microphone up. But but no, I finished up school. I really wanted to do sound for film. That was kind of what I really, really kind of was drawn towards, maybe Foley, maybe just kind of sound design in that department. But I loved that side of things. I knew I would never cut it as a musician just because that takes a lot. So I came down here to finish up school, and I took a photography class as like a prerequisite to graduate. And yeah, I fell in love with it. I'm just going to apologize if you can hear my dogs back there. They're really going at it. So I've got two Siberian Huskies that like to talk. So I thought bringing them inside was a good idea, but we'll let it roll. They'll get over it.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
but yeah, so I took a prerequisite kind of photography class. It was either photography or culinary. And can you hear that? Because I honestly
I love it, actually. It's very cool.
Okay, cool. I'll just keep rolling, but this is real life here. This is what my clients deal with a lot because my studio is in my house. So I once they realize something's going on and they're not part of it, it becomes a very dramatic scene. And they're fighting over food right now. Like one wants to eat, one doesn't want to eat, but doesn't want her to eat his food. It's a whole thing. But welcome to the Carpenter household. So, but anyway, let's get back to it. So I took a prerequisite. It was either culinary or photography, and all my friends happened to be taking the photography class. So I was like, yeah, what the hell? I'll do it and see. And I didn't know that I was going to fall in love with it. I mean, honestly, from day one of class, I was like, what did I just spend all my money on audio stuff for? And never worked a day of audio in my life. and I pretty much went straight into photography pretty shortly after graduating. I graduated in 2010 from college, and I was working. Technically, my business started in 2011, according to the government, but I was working in 2010. So, but yeah, so that was kind of how it started, and I didn't know I wanted to be a portrait photographer. I didn't know like really what was where I was headed. I just know I kind of liked this new thing I found, and I started out doing events. I actually found an event listing on Craigslist back when that was a thing, and it was event photography. It was like $50 and free beer for like a 10-hour shoot. It was ridiculous. But I was 22 years old, and the free beer enticed me, and and I responded, and they're like, "Oh, well, we filled that position already, so we don't have that, but we need a photo booth if you can do that." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely, I can do a photo booth." I mean, I didn't know how. I Googled it after I got off the phone with them, but even better, that was $250 and still free beer. So it was in my mind, I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll just be a photo booth guy now. It pays better." So so I did that, and honestly, it was a great way for me to meet people. It was I kind of took it as a way to network with people that I wouldn't normally necessarily network with. So, and a lot of the clientele at those events were very kind of young entrepreneurs that maybe worked on the marketing team for their bigger company, whether at a bank or what. But I was approached by a lot of people that asked me, "Hey, do you shoot weddings? Do you do headshots? Do you do dog photography? Do you do this, that, and the other?" And I would say yes to just about everything, or I think I said yes to everything at first until I quickly realized I didn't really like shooting weddings. No shame in doing that. It's just not for me. Too much planning that goes involved. But I realized I liked working with people, and I kind of liked working with the corporate side of things and working with businesses rather than individuals. Uh, Mostly just because it was easier to get paid. It might take a little longer, but there was no emotional attachment to it. You're just dealing with somebody who has a marketing budget, and you just kind of roll with that. If you come in or around that budget, you're probably doing okay. But yeah, that's kind of how I started my portrait business. Not a super sexy story, but that's how it happened.
Now, I mean, you're based in Nashville, and obviously Nashville is probably one of the most creative places on the planet. Given the music industry, and as I've realized over the last 4 or 5 years, there's also a lot of movie and TV production going on in the area too. Um, how has living in a creative city like that, how has that specifically shaped your business?
I mean, I think it really it's interesting because it's very creative, but it's also very. I mean, you said entrepreneurial kind of at the beginning, but there's a lot of big companies that are moving their headquarters here too, like Alliance Bernstein, like they're like big name stuff. I think Oracle's just building a campus here. So it's like you have that. I think they're drawn to it probably because of that creative nature. Like I said, I live down a little bit south. Not that it's not creative, but it is kind of a little bit of a bubble. So I'm not, going down to Broadway every night and, soaking in the creative energy from all the musicians there. If I have friends visit Nashville, I'm like, if we do Broadway, the sun has to be out. That's my only rule. I'm not dealing with it at night. But yeah, it's interesting because it's the same market. I mean, I'm still got clients up in Nashville, and it's interesting because I think it's easy to get, creativity and kind of get like draw off of that. But at the same time, it's easy to kind of get stuck in your little bubble too. I mean, and I found myself kind of in that position a couple of years ago where I wasn't really out doing as much in like networking. I wasn't, I, it was a little bit of COVID, a little bit of, we had a COVID baby. And I'm not using that as an excuse. It's just kind of the natural order. It just kind of happened that way where I kind of was staying home more. I basically had to kind of rebuild my business from the ground up because people, if you're not out and about and doing stuff, people not that they forget that you're there, but they're just going to move on to the next person.
Oh, big
Because there are more than there are a ton of capable photographers in this area, in any area. And people don't, if they don't see your face, they're just going to be like, oh, well, he must have stopped shooting, And
Yeah.
so I really had to be diligent about getting back out there. When I joined the local chamber of commerce, like boring stuff, but it's a great way to get out there and network with businesses and people and just kind of show face. Cause if you're not there, then, nobody's gonna hire you.
Yeah, that's so super
I know
important.
that didn't answer your question at all.
No, but it's a super important point, because I had exactly the same experience. Like I used to work as a session musician in London, and at some point I moved out to a place called Milton Keynes, which is sort of commuter. It's a commuter town, So a lot of people that
That's
live in
where Red Bull F1 is located,
just
right?
that was just down my road, actually. Yeah, so I literally lived around the corner from there. Um, but the thing was, it was easy to get into London in and out. It was directly right by a highway, no problem at all. But I tell you, the minute I moved out there, that was it. If you're not in town, you might as well not exist. It was a very
Mhm.
and it was like a rude. I mean, on one hand, it was a rude awakening. On the other hand, it created opportunities that probably wouldn't have existed otherwise. But it's really, I think, it's for everyone listening. If you're, I think, really, if you want to break into a market, you really have to be there. You know, that's the important part.
Ri and I think I just kinda found myself a slightly different market. The average, home value, like, in the town I live in, I do not live in one of these houses, by the way, is like $900,000. It's a pretty well-off town. We snuck in early and got a great deal on a house.
Yeah.
But you have this kind of it's essentially a different market. It's not really the same as it was in Nashville. But yeah, so you have this kind of you just kind of play in a slightly different game, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of jumping back to your how does the creativity of the town kind of factor into me? I don't know that it really does. I think it's great as a creative, being around creative people. I don't think I can necessarily quantify it, but it definitely matters because if you're around, and I find myself kind of you get into creative lulls here and there where it's important to have projects that are kind of your own and just to kind of keep those creative juices flowing. So I think being around creative people helps with that. Maybe people that are willing to collaborate on something rather than just like, a model that must get paid or something. So like having kind of a core group of people that you can be creative with, whether it's musicians or models or other photographers. I mean, I love collaborating with other photographers. An example is I was out in Vegas last week for WPPI, and I went to a networking event, and I love talking to people. I don't love the, like, super loud networking events always. So a group of photographers kinda went around, and we just went and this was in, like, this massive suite at the Rio where the conference was, and we just went I mean, it was just like a bunch of little kids kinda running around. We were lighting stuff up with our iPhones, just, like, getting really creative with the stuff we had. Nobody had a camera, everybody just had a phone, and we were just kinda finding all these nooks and crannies and creating stuff to where I pulled out, like, a trash can from the bathroom that hadn't been used, and used it as, like, a sort of pseudo beauty dish, and we just kinda created this really cool stuff that, I wouldn't have normally done that by myself, but there was kind of this energy about that event where people were just like, "Oh, yeah, let's just go create stuff, and if it sucks, it sucks. If it's cool, it's cool." Like, no one's judging anybody, and I think that's a key thing too, is being in I don't wanna say, like, we have to be in our safe space, but I think it helps the creativity sometimes where no one's gonna care about what you do, and if you do something that doesn't look cool, which happened, no one's gonna sit there and judge you for it. Yeah, so it's I think having something where you leave yourself open to the opportunity to create rather than I can't really force myself to create. It has to kind of come naturally. So, and that kind of bleeds into your, like your I'll call it my corporate work. But they most people want what their marketing people tell them they need. But every once in a while, you get some clients that are like, "Hey, like, we love your work and we're hiring you for like your vision. So take from that what you will and create something obviously within reason. But yeah, so it's I'm going off on a tangent here, so stop me anytime.
That's great. It's a podcast. Uh, what was your like? What were your sort of greatest challenges? When you first set up your portrait business, what was sort of what were the biggest hurdles that you had to climb over?
I think the biggest hurdle when I started was I didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about lighting. I fell into photography kind of as we talked about before, like very accidentally. Uh, so I found myself kind of learning as I go. And I'm not a, oh, fake it till you make it kind of person, but you kind of have to in a way. So my challenge was there was a bit of self-doubt and a lot of imposter syndrome because I'm over here getting paid to work and I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. But that allowed me to kind of step outside your confines of this is the right way to do stuff and it kind of set me apart in a way. It I don't know, I'm still figuring it out, honestly. So, but it's yeah, I think from the get-go, it was "Oh, shoot, I might have dove in a little too deep because I'm getting clients and I don't I didn't really understand lighting very well, and I went very backwards. I started because I started kind of in that photo booth side of things where I needed to have artificial light because it wasn't in natural light environments. So I kind of learned studio lighting first. And when I say learn studio lighting, I used studio lights. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing with them, but by doing that, it kind of forced me to learn, and it kind of fed me. I love learning, so it kind of forced me to learn a new skill. I learned what sync speed was very quickly. you know, Stuff like that. So I think from the get go, as far as my business, it was a lot of kind of jumping over my own hurdles I created by, being in a position of I've got clients and I need to make it seem like I know what I'm doing. Luckily, none of them ever knew the struggles I was going through trying to kind of figure it out as I went. But now I know what I'm doing, so that's good. But it took a minute.
Yeah, it's sort of the accumulation of knowledge. I think you're right. I mean, it was very similar for me. I started really making money, very little money, but some money with photography. Really just with a pop up softbox and a speed light. That's all I had,
Yeah.
and and then it went from I was experimenting with things, and then it went to like somebody said like, oh, can you do a headshot? I'm like, I think I can do that. And of course, when I look back now, it's pretty terrible by modern standards, but
Right.
but you got to start somewhere.
How often do you look back at your, like, early work?
Oh,
Do you ever do that?
it's Facebook. When Facebook comes up with the thing,
Mhm.
that goes like on this day 10 years ago, and it
Yeah.
brings up
We're like, "Oh my, what was I thinking?"
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean that's it's always
I
cringe.
I every once in a while will go through old stuff because I mean, I like to when I teach, I like to kind of put that in my slide deck just as, "Hey, this is what it used to look like. So this is why we're learning."
Yeah.
But, it's yeah, I don't know. I mean,
You know,
I
it's
went
very
in and
so it's
go ahead.
what it is? It's basically like I think at any stage when you figure out something new, you think, "Oh wow, this is the best thing ever," right? And then it gets to this point of like self hypnosis almost, where you sort of make yourself believe that the thing that you've just done is awesome. And you know, when you put some time between whatever you just made and yourself, and you look back at it, it's like 5 years later, you go, "Oh my god." And I tell you what, this is actually this is an effect that happens in music just in the same way. Because I remember when I was like, when I was a teenager, I used to come up with stuff on the guitar, And every time I come up with something new, I'll be like, "Whoa, freaking hell! This is like the awesomest riff ever!" Right? Or like, I learn a lick or something, and I'd record myself on one of these mini dictaphone things. You remember these like small mini tape things? And I would just record it, and then I would take the tape and I would put it in a shoebox and put it in the wardrobe, like in the cupboard, and I would leave it there. And 6 months later, I would go back and I would listen to it. And the thing that I thought at the point of recording, I thought this is the greatest thing ever. I'd listen back to it and I'd be like, "Oh my god, it's out of time, it's out of tune." It's terrible. But it just, it just goes to show you sort of you develop, you accumulate new knowledge, and then that allows you to judge past misdemeanors, in a better way, so to say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think open yourself up to failure a little bit too. And I'm not saying like you go into like this is going to be the worst thing ever, but having this mentality of it's not might not be the best thing, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm a firm believer of, and it isn't always the case, but I'm like, okay, I want my next photo to be my best shot I've ever taken. Obviously, that's a very unrealistic goal, but I think having that mentality helps a little because it kind of helps you push the boundaries of whatever it is you're doing. If it's a creative project or even a client project, having the mindset of this is going to be the best thing I've ever done instead of settling. Because I think it's really, especially in headshots, it's very easy to kind of settle and be like, well, this is good enough for them, even though for me, and I have this where I'll produce work for clients that they're ecstatic with, and I think is absolutely garbage. And I think in a way that's holding me back from getting more clients because I don't share a lot of the client work that I don't think is perfect, and that's a big major flaw of mine. So I'm trying to be better about sharing work, even if I don't think it's the best thing I've ever done. So kind of getting out of that mentality of, yeah, I think like strive for that, but be okay if it comes up a little short sometimes. It still might be the best photo that they've ever had. And I have to look at it from that perspective a little bit where I might be giving them the coolest thing that they've ever seen, even though to me it might be mediocre and a little bland. So I have to kind of look at it from their perspective and be okay with letting the world see that work. I think coming from my social media kind of started from the education side of things. So it was geared towards photographers. And with that, you have a lot of people who think, and rightfully so, are probably better photographers than I am, honestly. But you get bombarded with, I can do it better. I can do it better. Why are you doing this? This just negativity and online trolls. And I think I do care what people think about me, no matter what I say. I genuinely care. I'm a people pleaser at heart, so so I don't want anybody not to like me. And but yeah, so it's I think allowing yourself to put yourself out there and show work that's not perfect and not necessarily the best thing you've ever done, but having the mentality of trying to create and not settling and trying to create the best thing. So kind of finding that balance of trying to be the best you can, but if it's not the end of the world either.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps. It might just be a thing where it actually motivates you to, to strive to get better if you so force yourself to put stuff out, and especially if you're thinking like, I don't want to put anything embarrassing out there, but that
Mhm.
might on the flip side, it might just push you to actually put more effort into creating good work, so that you don't, that you don't put out stuff that's below par. There's a friend of mine, a Scottish expat who lives in Sweden. He's he does a lot of acting headshots, and he puts tons of stuff out on LinkedIn and on Instagram and stuff like that. And I see his stuff all the time. He's completely present like all the time, and I just think to myself, I wish I could do that. I wish I had the motivation to like post stuff constantly.
Yeah, and that's kinda what I was saying is I have this my we're our own worst critic, and I think that's the truth of the matter. So, once I can get over myself a little, I think I can start put because really I do need to get more on LinkedIn. I just hate how clunky it is.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible.
I,
It's the most unaesthetically pleasing platform on the planet.
I say this all the time, all the time. Like, I go to networking meetings, like with all these other businesses, and they go like, "Oh, are you on LinkedIn?" I was like, "Yeah, I am, but I
Yeah.
never do
I
it."
was like, "But don't go through my feed because it's not great."
And everybody keeps saying like, "Oh yeah, you've got to really, get down with LinkedIn," and and especially if your clients are corporates, for example, I can see it because they're
And
all
it's
hanging out
true.
there.
It really is. Yeah, it's but yeah, I hate how it looks, and
Oh, it looks terrible. I know.
I'm not gonna pay for the upgraded version to get rid of the ads because it's an outrageous price per month. It's like $90 a month, isn't it? I was like, "I
Yeah.
don't think that's gonna
No,
I
and it's
can live with it for that."
I love that finally I found somebody who's like, minded the same way, because I hate the way it looks. It's just so uncreative, and I just hate looking at it. That's why I never open it. you know.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is it's like it's also I just get all these notifications and I'm like, I don't care about this. Like it's like, oh, and it looks like it's a notification for you, but it's just like so and so posted something that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, and then, I get these things like, "Oh, you got a message from LinkedIn," and I open it up, and it's it's LinkedIn itself messaging me about
Yeah.
some other thing that I need to pay that they
Yeah.
want me to pay for or something. It's,
Mhm.
oh
Yeah.
my god.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
at what point did you realize that this, headshots and branding photography, could become a serious business?
The headshots came first. The branding is relatively new. I think I always did branding photography, but I never knew like what it was that's what it was called. It kind of telling the story of the brand. And so I really pushed branding in the last like, you know, 24 months. I mean, that's probably where that really, really started coming in to last. You can tell I've had a kid recently. I'm talking months when I should just say 2 years. But
Yeah.
she's 5 now. I don't even, so we're past that. I think we stopped after she turned a year. I was like, she's a year old. It's not.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, so the last couple of years, I really started pushing the branding kind of and branding it that way, I guess you could say, and kind of pushing my marketing out as a branding photographer. Um, but I always kind of did that. And the I don't know. It's weird talking about business because I'm still figuring the business side out. Honestly, like I don't consider myself a great I consider myself a creative, and the business stuff I'm still like figuring out what the hell I'm doing. It's worked out, but I'm not over here teaching business classes by any means.
No, but I think that's
You
actually,
know?
but that's actually, I think that's really important for people to hear, because I know that, especially, I mean, they always say creatives don't make great businessmen. Many exceptions apply, of course,
Right, right.
but I think a lot of creatives are in the same boat, where they feel like, what they want to do is the creative thing,
Mhm.
making photographs, taking pictures. But the business side inevitably has to be dealt with, because that's the thing that, keeps your head over your roof, and, and bread on the table, so to say. So, and I think it's actually good to hear that, even somebody at your standard is just trying to figure that side out. I love to hear that. Yeah, I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, my clients don't love hearing that.
Well, yeah, that's a different thing.
No, but honestly, it's like at the end of the day, though, it's I'm still like trying new things and trying to figure out like, oh, maybe this marketing strategy works better than what I've been doing. Um, I think it kind of goes back to the you don't ever want to get complacent with it. Obviously, if you find something that works and it's like a formula that is just bringing you all the big bucks, then don't don't fix it if it's not broken, but yeah, I mean, I'm always up for trying new things and trying, you know, even just adding different like not skills, but like adding different packages to like I shoot a fair amount of video too. I don't really tell people that, but I do. And I love it. Honestly, I love shooting video. It's not something I don't ever want to be like, "Oh, I'm the guy who does a little bit of everything," because you know the saying. It's like jack of all trades, master none, blah blah blah. I think there's more to that than I just said. But you have this I want to be niched out to where like my clients are hiring me for very specific things. That's why I kind of went into the headshots branding. My website will say events as well, just because it's a great way to meet new clients. But yeah, the it's funny because I took video off of my website a couple years ago, maybe last year, and the day I took it off, I was like, all right, I'm gonna just do photography. I'm not worrying about video at all anymore. I got like 3 inquiries about video that week. I was like, maybe I should just take my whole darn website down and I'll get way more business. So, but yeah, it was just kind of funny because I was like, all right, I'm washing my hands of video. I'm not doing it. And then, now I'm like even starting to offer like live streaming and stuff like that, just because it's
Mm.
no, it's I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. I I don't necessarily lump it into my photography business. I did brand myself as Ready Light Media kind of purposeful from the get-go because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I guess from the very get-go, I was Ready Light Photography. But then I did start doing some videos. So I was like, all right, well, I need to kind of broaden the umbrella a little bit and be a media company rather than a photography company. And I also never wanted it to be my name personally, just because I wanted it to seem a little bigger than it was. And, I'll respond to emails with we and us and making it seem like it's a team when 99% of the time it's just me.
I do it all the
So
time. Like even in the intro outro of the podcast, I keep saying we, and I keep thinking like, but it is only me. It's literally, and then I tell you what my wife said to me. My wife said, I was talking to her about it. My wife said, well, just think of it, it's you and the podcast. So it's like 2 entities. Yeah, but that makes
yeah,
sense. It's fine.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny where it's I'm yeah, like I said, I'm still trying to figure out the whole business because the market's always evolving too. That's the thing. It's not like you can just do one thing and like let's say there are markets that stay consistent. I would say like I've never really shot school photography, but like school portraits, I imagine probably stay pretty consistent from day to day. The formula hasn't changed. You show up, you shoot, you send out an order form, blah blah blah. I imagine if you're a school photographer and that's not how it goes, I apologize. I'm using it as an example though. But something like that where it stays pretty consistent, and it has for quite a few years. I think in the portrait and let's say the branding stuff people's like businesses branding changes, pretty consistently and they might rebrand every year and they might need a whole new set of things and they might need something that fits kind of in the social media specs, which is changing by the minute it seems. So you kind of have to pivot with the clients and stay open to giving them what they need, but also helping guide them when they don't know what they need. That's one thing I find kind of funny is I hear a lot like, "Oh, you're the photographer. What do you think?" I was like, "Well, you're the one that hired me, and it's your business." I don't know. Like, I can guide you in a way, but I can't tell you what it is that you need. Um, so I do hear that a lot where people are like, "Oh, well, you're the creative. You tell us what we need." I was like, "Well, I mean, I feel like if that's the case, we probably shouldn't have like gone into the like shooting mode yet. We should have done some pre-production first,
Yeah.
which I have been doing a lot more lately. Is trying to kind of work alongside clients rather than just coming in shooting one day, and like you can do that with headshots. Everybody kind of knows what they need. It's a face card, right? With branding, you do have to kind of, I don't want to say you have to hold their hand a little bit, but you learn a lot about the business, and you structure a session, whether it's photo and video or just photo or just video. It's and you structure that around kind of what they need and what their goals are for their business. So you you're almost kind of a consultant in a way, and trying to get them because here's the thing. If I it I'm not doing anybody a service if I'm just creating cool images for them. Like, those images have to serve a purpose, and if it's not serving the purpose that they need, then they're not gonna hire me again. So, it's in my best interest as a branding photographer to figure out what it is that they need and what their goals are for the company rather than just what they want out of images. Like, me delivering cool shots is not gonna sell their product. And once I kind of realized that, I was like, oh, like I'm really kind of partnering with people. If I'm ever on retainer with them, I don't actually call it a retainer. I call it a brand partnership because that's kind of what it is. I'm really just kind of coming alongside them and creating images, you know, for them that serves a very specific purpose. And at the end of the day, there needs to be an ROI there. If they're not making money based on the images that I'm creating for them, if that, obviously there's examples where that doesn't apply, but in most cases, they need images to drive traffic to their site or to inform clients about something very specific. And at the end of the day, it's usually to sell something. I did some branding for a hospital recently. I mean, yes, they never want patients to come in like, hospitals. I mean, I mean, I'm sure there's some people that, that's what keeps the doors open, but, but you get my point. They're really like, in that case, they're doing cardiology. They're just selling the facilities and trying to get, if someone needs something there, they want them to come to them and not the hospital down the road. So in a way, it's, they're trying to get people to come to the doors, but it's kind of people that already need it. Yeah. So we were showing all the stuff in the cardiology department. We're in the cath lab showing this giant machine. I have no idea what it did. But it's kind of figuring out, okay, what's the end goal? And the end goal is to get people to come to their hospital and not the one next door. And how do we do that? So it's kind of in that way, it's showing actual doctors. In the past, this hospital only used stock photos. So it's using actual doctors that people see in the community. It's showing the technology that the facility has. It's kind of checking boxes, and it's my job to check the boxes with images, if that makes sense.
I mean, in my experience, and I can 100% say over the last 5 years, I mean, definitely since the pandemic, I would say, um, the need for video in my business has increased dramatically. I mean, I would say before the pandemic was probably, I don't know, maybe I was doing 5% video, maybe something like that. Now it's like encroaching on 50%. It really is, there's been a massive increase in the need for video, whether that's because of social media, whether it's because, video content is so much more common on websites in general, or, whatever the reasons are. Do you think that a lot of photographers might be shying away from video because it seems like such a massive additional skill set? Because with video comes audio, and then you have to know about that and blah blah. Do you think that's one of the reasons why a lot of stills photographers just still shy away from um, incorporating video into their own business?
I mean, probably. I don't know. I can only speak for myself. Um, but it is. I mean, it's a whole nother. Yes, technically, your camera, you switch it into video mode, and now you can shoot video, right? Obviously, but then you have the lighting is different. Just the whole mindset of how to. It is hard. Like the whole like hybrid shooter thing is a bit of a, I don't want to say it's a ruse, but it kind of is in a way, because you can't just flip a switch and now you're shooting video. There's so much more that goes into it. And yeah, audio huge. Like, you can have bad lighting and you can get away with it. You have bad audio and people are just like, all right, I'm done. I can't deal with it. And that's the truth. So yeah, it's one more thing, but I mean, you got these little DJI Osmo Pockets that come with a mic that connects.
Which is
There's a
amazing,
lot
by
of
the way.
easy, yeah. It's I mean, and it sounds good. It looks good. Um, yeah, there's clients that kind of want the higher production value where you got a matte box on the front of your camera for, usually for a reason, but sometimes just for aesthetics. Uh, but uh, but at the end of the day, I think it's just another thing. And if people are kind of, I wasn't out there chasing video. I wasn't chasing video clients. It came out of hey, we need video. Do you know anybody or can you do it? And I was just like, well, rather than me trying to manage another team, keeping it kind of under one umbrella. And yes, I will hire out shooters, but it's still kind of under my umbrella. So sometimes I shoot the video, sometimes I hire, a video, you know, camera op to do it. And then I'll either do the editing or I'll send the editing off. I don't really have this is how I do it every single time. It's kind of a job to job basis for certain things. Like that does have a very specific formula, like headshots. I shoot it, I edit it, I deliver it. It's very systematic, but a lot of events, maybe have something where it's a little bit different. Or I like to edit video, but I might have a lot on my plate and I don't want to, so I might send it off to an editor. Luckily, I just found a guy who does a fantastic job. So it's a little less. I've just been burned so many times with photo and video editing. That's just terrible. So I I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to that kind of thing. So when I find someone good, I try and latch onto them. But yeah, it's I think to answer your question, it can seem very daunting and it can seem like a lot to, take on as a still photographer that's, either trying to get into video or trying to weigh the options of whether they should. Um, and it's not for everybody. Like if you're doing just fine and you don't need it and your clients don't need it, then don't worry about it. But, if your clients ask, it's really not a hard, everybody knows how to be in a video call. It's basically that with, but you're not connected to the internet. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's definitely some things that people might be like, yeah, it's just a lot of extra work, which I get. It's not like you can't just flip the switch and all of a sudden be shooting video. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's just a case by case. I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah. Now, let's come back to your photography for a minute. And in particular, the one thing that you're really well known for is your ability to shape light in a way. Um, what do you have? Do you use? Do you have like sort of go to lighting principles that you apply in general, or what's your lighting philosophy? Um, is that a good word? Lighting philosophy? I don't
Ye-
know. Well, how do you approach lighting? Basically, that's what I'm trying to say.
I approach lighting by understanding the fundamentals of lighting. As I mentioned before, I jumped into kind of studio and artificial lighting head first into the deep end and maybe even the shallow end. It might have been a little dangerous, but I didn't really understand the fundamentals. I was just stumbling on good images, which is not a great way to run a business or just be a photographer in general. So when I teach, I know this isn't exactly what you asked, but it kind of falls into my philosophy in general is understand the fundamentals, because if you don't understand the fundamentals, you're always going to be thinking about the technical side of things. Photography is a really great, it's interesting because it's a little bit of math, a little bit of science, and a little bit of art. It's all of those things kind of encompass into one thing that is photography, right? So having the technical side not top of mind, um, And just kind of knowing that like the back of your hand, you're able to then be creative, or you're able to problem solve. If something does go wrong, you're not sitting there wondering like, "Oh man, like let me get my little notebook out and figure it out." Like I really, really encourage people to dive into understanding the fundamentals of lighting, because in the corporate world, like in like the type of clients that I shoot, I need to replicate and recreate things a lot, and I can't if I don't know how to like what I'm doing, I don't know how light works and interacts in this environment or that environment, then it's really hard for me to recreate something to match something I've shot before. Um, I do it kind of minimally. There's photographers out there like Ian Spainer that like draws everything out like to a T, and he can replicate it, like, exactly. I can get it pretty close. I mean, I do I use a light meter? Yes, but is there certain things where it might not if it needs to match up and I know that going into it, I will be a lot more diligent about, documenting it. If it's just kind of a, "Hey, it needs to look pretty similar," then I'm gonna be a little bit less, a little more loosey-goosey with the kind of documents of that, but to to my point though, it's really just important to understand how lighting works and how you can create images on purpose and with purpose rather than, you know, anybody can stumble on great light and create great images. But being able to do it on purpose, I think there's the number of photographers, it gets significantly less. Um, so yeah, for me, it's just learn the lighting, understand how it works. It's not that hard, honestly. Like it's yeah, it's a new skill, but it's if you're a photographer and you want to be serious about it, you have to know lighting. You're doing yourself and your potential clients a disservice by not knowing it, and it will bite you in the ass eventually. You might be able to get by, you know, for a while, but there's gonna be a time where you're gonna look like a fool because something happened that was a very avoidable situation, that you're now stuck in, and you just don't ever wanna be, in that position with clients or anything, or really anybody. I mean, it's so, yeah, learn lighting. I'm not gonna sit here and plug myself, but I have an ebook that makes it very simple.
Brilliant. Yeah,
If
the
you go to
link
a
to which
workshop,
can be found in the description below.
but yeah, no, and I think like because I I learned from YouTube and I learned from trial and error, the way that I teach is very non-technical. It's at least I think. I mean, yeah, there's technical stuff. Like I cover the inverse square law, but it's very like, easy to digest, I think. I'm not sitting here throwing out the formula exactly. I might put it in there, but it's like, "Hey, this is actually, like, what it does." Like, it's a if you move the light closer, you have to turn the power down so the fall off is a little more, drastic and this, that, and the other. So it's like, here's how you can apply it to an actual I love showing, like, "Hey, like, here's this thing you've heard, and you've probably been scared off by it, the inverse square law. It's this whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's this whole mathematical formula. But if you just put it into this is really just what it does, you see the light bulb, in people. They're like, oh, well, that's not really that difficult. And a lot of times people are like, yeah, I actually knew that. I just didn't know that's what that was. But once you kind of start to connect those dots, then you can start creating from a creative perspective rather than a throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So I think it's yeah, just it always just comes back to you can't have photography without light, so it's probably in your best interest to know how light works.
You know what I love doing is I love sort of reverse engineering images.
Mhm.
And I recently had to do that with like a 1930s, you know, um, like film noir kind of image. Um, and I thought it was going to be clever about it. And I threw it into ChatGPT, and I basically asked ChatGPT to analyze the lighting for me, and then create a lighting diagram based on that.
How'd that work?
Terrible. I mean, terrible. Literally,
Yeah.
it came back and it goes like, um, okay, the key line is camera left. And I'm looking at it. No, it's not. It's camera right, quite obviously.
Yeah.
So I started doubting myself and I'm like, what do you mean when you say camera left? You know, it's like,
Yeah. Right.
and I'm like, but isn't it? And then, of course, the thing with ChatGPT is like you put in, doesn't the key light, like, doesn't the light come from camera right? And then, of course, the answer
It's
is,
like, oh, you're right. It
of
does.
course it does. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be totally pointless.
Yeah.
Uh,
I saw the funniest ChatGPT. I'm gonna touch on this in a second, but I saw a really funny ChatGPT, like, uh, it like the cartoon kind of thing. I saw it on Facebook or something, and it was like a guy who was like, "Hey, ChatGPT, can I eat these mushrooms?" And the next slide is him dead, and the ChatGPT is like, "You're right, they are poisonous. Do you want to learn about poisonous mushrooms?"
but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, it's how it is. I was like, it's you have to like coach it into giving you the answer. Then at the end of the day, it's like it can do a lot of research really fast. It can't really think very well. Uh, but no, coming back to reverse engineering, that is honestly how I learned a lot of lighting. Is my wife would be in Sephora or the makeup aisle in Target, and I am not really into buying makeup, but there's a whole lot of beauty images and a lot of photos that are lit a lot of different ways, and I would just kind of go and be like, oh, like you can see the shadow on the node and it's coming this way. And you can see the catch light in the eyes. You can see the rim light on so and I would kind of sit there and reverse engineer all of these images in the makeup aisle and learn. And that was really kind of how I learned how to light a face, was taking an image that existed and figuring out how it was done. Um, and yeah, that's such a great way to learn. There's so many tools out there that can get you to understand lighting and learn lighting that doesn't require you to rent studio time or even get a camera out.
What's that?
Like Elixir software, Satellite 3D. Have you
That's how I was
played
going
with
to
that?
mention it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I can sit here and watch a movie on Netflix and build a whole lighting scene for a shoot that I might have. I mean, it's developed for pre-production. I a lot of times will kind of go in and shoot something for fun, and then I'll put it back into it, and then I'll create like an animation for it for my Instagram. But yeah, that is an incredible program, and they
how
just came out with a new version that's like, I mean, it's ridiculous.
how accurate is it? Because I was looking at this only a couple of days ago, and I was thinking, I wonder how good this really is. Because I mean, I've seen it. I haven't. I think I played around with the free version, but there's a lot of features
Yeah,
you
the
can use.
studio version is a lot better, and for the price, I mean, it's not ridiculous, and it's like a lifetime. It's not a I think they've come out with this is like version 3, so they've come out with, like, basically 3 completely different versions. Um, I would say it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's not perfect, but you can create something in it, and uh, you can then, like like, have it export a diagram, and then it will you could give that to an assistant. Like, it gives you, like, light powers, it gives you height and angle of your lights and distance from your subject and camera settings. So you could print that out, give it to an assistant, and that would get you about 85% of the way there. I mean, I think it's pretty accurate as far as the rendering is concerned. Um, but yeah, I mean, you could print that PDF out and have a reference image and get you there like 80-90%. I think I mean, it's an invaluable tool for a couple $100, I think,
E-
I'll spend more than that on dinner, so
Especially at
not
dinner time.
always, sometimes.
Yeah,
I know, so
especially
kidding,
yeah, especially
$27 burger that, it's okay.
yeah, especially if you go out for dinner at the Gaylord in Nashville, you definitely spend more than
Oh my word.
$100.
Well, Nashville, I've learned that I live in the expensive place, because I'll go visit places and I'll be like, "Oh, this is really cheap." Uh, so
Yeah.
it's not great, but but yeah, I found that I think I just live in the place that's kind of expensive. Um, but yeah, so to answer your question, that Elixir software, Satellite 3D is a pretty I've been using it for 7 years now, I think, like since version 1. And it's gotten a lot better since then. So it's like the rendering of it is like I've had people look at it and be like, "Oh, that's a really cool photo." I was like, "Well, it's a fake person." Uh, but yeah, it's cool. I mean, and there is a free version. I don't know what the I'll be honest, I don't know what the difference is with the free version versus the pro version or studio version, I think it's called. Um, but it's worth it, shot to play around with it. I think you can get a 30-day of the pro like trial, I think. I think I have a 15% discount also,
Cool.
somewhere flying around. I'll send to you.
Yeah, send it over to me because I'm literally I was about to push the button the other day. I was like, oh man, I should really put
I will
it on.
I will find it and I will send it to you.
Oh, thank you very
I'm
much.
pretty sure it's just Jeff dash 15.
Okay.
If I'm
Cool.
give that a shot.
I'll give
It's
that a
out in the
shot.
world now.
Why not? Why not?
So,
Um,
but yeah.
if you only had, let's say, two lights in a small studio, you know, um, what would be the best way to use them? I'm always drawn to like small studio scenarios because my studio is tiny, and so
Yeah.
I'm always interested in like great ideas for small studios. So if you had two lights in a small space, what would you do with it?
Um, do it's no, I think let's just pretend, for pretending's sake that it is a room with no windows, right? Um, I I like I used to be really big only shoot with octaboxes. I don't know why. It was just like a 3-foot octa was like my go-to for years. Um, to venture into the world of rectangular softboxes.
Ooh. Is it?
No,
Do you
yeah, no,
find
but
is it
it's
major? Is that major? Do you find it's a major difference?
not really. No, I do it more for if I am trying to emulate something. I'm a big catch light guy. I feel like if I'm indoors, I'll try and use a rectangular softbox for my key light now, more so just to we don't often have circular windows, so that's just very few people will notice that. That's just a me getting nitpicky kind of thing. But yeah, so I'll use around a 3-foot, 2x3 softbox. Actually, I think I've got a 3x4 now, and then like a 3-foot octa. 4-foot octa is great. I think like an octa that size is less important than people think as far as like the actual size of the modifier itself, right? If you can always move it closer and it gets bigger, right? That's something called perceived size. So if you move a light source closer, it's going to appear to be bigger than it is. The sun is ginormous, but it's super far away, so it looks small, right? Same thing goes with soft boxes or lighting modifiers. You want it small, move it further away. Want it close, you move it closer, and that's where you start to get the inverse square law. The closer you bring it, you have to bring the power down, and the fall off is quicker. Just stuff like that. I will nerd out about this, and I'll go on forever. So just interject anytime. So
Let's go.
but yeah, so I think if you were to I would have a V flat or something that I can control light with a little bit. Like if I was to start from scratch, I would get if I'm in a studio, 250 watt seconds is more than you need. You're not overpowering the sun. I use little where are they? These guys here. Like the little A2s, like
Oh yeah.
for a lot of stuff. These little 100-watt second lights. I'll use those all the time. But yeah, like it's 250-watt second is more than you need. Do I have 500-watt second ones? Sure, I do. But I'll bring those on location with me. So I would get a couple strobes in that realm. Um, I would probably personally, I would get a strip box with a grid, just to be able to separate the light a little bit. And then I would get, yeah, a medium-sized softbox or octabox, and you are well on your way to being able to I mean, shoot, if you wanna go even cheaper, get an umbrella. If you know you're just gonna umbrella is one of the most versatile and cheapest modifiers you can get. You can kinda close it down and control the light a little bit more. You can open it up, throw a sock on there, and you basically got a softbox. Uh, yeah, umbrellas and typically are, unless you're shooting pro photo, then they're relatively cheap. So
Nothing's cheap with pro photo, man.
no, no, but it's great. Honestly, like I never thought like, oh, like this umbrella versus that umbrella is gonna be better. Um, it is, but
It's
but you
I
can still create great light with really, really
yeah.
affordable, cheap things. I didn't start shooting pro photo. I shot pro photo like 10 years into business. So it was kind of, I think I switched to pro photo in 2020. Great year to do that.
Uh, I had a funny text conversation with Mark Wallace the other day because I can't remember exactly what I asked him. It was something about live modifiers. Uh, oh, uh, I was what was it about? It was about Magnum modifiers, right? And I
Oh,
said,
the mag.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I said, oh well, I mean, I might as well just use. I've got a 7-inch reflector lying around, so I might as well just use that. And then I get this massive response you know, about the differences between like, this Magnum versus that Magnum, and I'm like, wow, this is more intense than I thought it would be. You
yeah.
know?
I honestly, that is above my pay grade. I don't understand because there's so many. I understand they're gonna throw light differently. I can't tell you which one does what. The longer. Also, then you've got like white versus silver interior. Obviously, the silver is gonna reflect more light and be a little more specular and have
Mm.
more highlights. The white isn't necessarily gonna be softer. It's gonna be more spread in the same thing. That's another thing that's kind of, like, when people throw, like, diffusion, they're like, "Oh, it's a softer light." I was like, "No, it's the same light. It's just not hitting in the it's more evenly spread out over the same surface area."
Mm.
So, it's not really softer. It might appear softer because there's not as much contrast, but it's the same size light modifier, and size is what's going to control how, like, soft or hard the light source is. Like, throwing a sock on it isn't gonna make it technically softer, but it does make it maybe a little more appealing. Same with, like, a white interior versus a silver interior. Silver's gonna throw a lot more light around. It's gonna be, I mean, you think about, like, a easy way to look at it is you take a little, like, 501 reflector. The silver one's a lot harder to kinda get it where it is because it's very directional. Same thing with the interior of a softbox. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's, I'm trying not to get too down in the weeds with all that. But, yeah, so to go back to the Magnum reflectors, I don't think I own one anymore. I had some when I shot with Paul C. Buff because they just had the 7-inch, kinda cone reflector.
Mhm.
Um, Pro Photo's interesting because they essentially have like a 50-degree reflector built into the inset flash head. So it's not a protruding head. And all of the modifiers that Pro Photo makes are designed with that in mind. So if you throw another type of light like that has a protruding flash bulb in it, it's not gonna look as good as the Pro Photo light. It's like I got it on good authority from Eric at Profoto that that's the truth. So
There's something to be said. I mean, I've for the longest time. I mean, actually, to be honest with you, for the longest time, I used to use like really cheap lights. I ran my headshot business for about 4 years with speed lights. Like,
Mhm.
and not even expensive speed lights. Um,
No.
and then I switched to a lighting brand called Interfit. Like my first studio
Mhm.
strokes were like Interfits. Like what do they call the honey badgers? And the only reason
Yeah, those are the clones of the Paul C. Buff ones.
exactly, and
Yeah, yeah.
that was exactly why I bought them because my studio space is so small, and I want I saw them and I thought, what is great because they saved me a couple of inches, because they're so cuboid rather than elongated,
Yeah.
and so I can get them
Yeah.
closer to the wall. And then somebody said to me, "Oh yeah, but you can just shoot in like into a reverse umbrella." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could do that."
Hey,
That's,
you
just-
could. I mean,
Never knows.
you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, but
That's the thing. Yeah.
yeah,
But
they worked for a
you
long
have,
time.
yeah. I mean, I shot with Paul C. Buff for 10 years. It was
Mm.
great. It's fine. I just kinda outgrew it, and there was a little bit of a reliability issue,
Yes.
that I was running into. I'm not saying it's forever, like, happens to everybody. Um, I just wanted something that I knew was gonna work when it needed to work, and that's kinda why I ventured into pro photo land, and here we are. So, but yeah, it's photography is interesting though, because there's a thousand, let's say a thousand ways to skin a cat, or however many ways. Same way. There's a bunch of different ways to get a very similar or the same image. It's just a matter of how you use the tools that you have at your disposal. You can get a great shot with an umbrella, and it's going to look the same as a as a rectangular or a octobox, but different. It does react differently, but 99% of the people looking at that photo aren't going to look at it and be like, oh, it would have been better with an octobox or something.
Yeah. And sometimes, sometimes they're just pure practicality issues. Like, for instance, what I love about Profoto, especially the A10, um, it's the click, like the whole idea of the click softbox. You can literally throw one of those and the click softbox into a tiny little backpack, and you're good to go. Whereas previously you had to like drag a much bigger back and stuff around with you. And then at the
I'll
same
take
time, yeah, and
two
then
of these and the 1x3 click and the 2.7 click, and I've basically got a mobile studio. I mean,
absolutely.
and it's great.
And it
For
takes up no
headshots.
space.
I'm
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
they're 100 watt seconds. Like, you said you used to run off speed lights. Those are what? 60, 70 watt seconds
they're about
max,
half the
maybe
power.
even maybe even 50, and, it's that worked fine. I don't know why people like some people are like, "Oh, well, it's only 100 watt seconds." I was like, "How often are you trying to overpower the sun to where it's literally, like, looks like it's nighttime?" I mean, that's
Yeah.
just not a practical way to shoot. Yeah, maybe there's certain, for me at least, I'm never trying to do that. I get the question, "Oh, can you overpower the sun?" I was like, "What do you mean by that? Like, can you expose properly for your background and then use this as fill and light your subject properly?" Yes.
Yeah.
Can you make it look like it's pitch black? I mean, maybe with a magnum reflector on there, but, I when do you need to do that?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And the one thing, I get from a practicality point of view, especially with those pro photos, the batteries last absolutely forever. You can't
But
even compare.
300 full power, like, and how often am I shooting full power? Like, I'll
Exactly.
use I have a bunch of extra batteries, and I bring them with me out of, like, fear.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah. But realistically, I'll do a whole shoot, a whole day, and never change my battery.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
I
mean,
did a wh I
it's
did a whole wedding on one battery, and I had 5 with me just for the same reason, because I'm, like,
yeah,
obnoxiously paranoid about it.
right. Right. Well, I can't camera batteries last that long, that's what I wanna know, you know?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, because I went through
I've been
5
running
batteries.
everything I've been running cameras a lot off of the, like, the V-mount batteries, just, like, especially with not I'm not shooting with them, like, my camera right now is connected to a V-mount, but, like, for video, because I can run a camera, for, 7 hours and
Mm.
never shut it off, and I mean, when do I need to have a camera running that long? But it's kinda nice to not have to worry about it. It's just back of mind, you throw a dummy battery in with the D-tap attachment, and you're good to go.
What sort of mistakes do you see, photographers make, especially when it comes to lighting? Like, what are the sort of mistakes you see all the time?
Um, I don't know. I mean, there's not really a like I said, there's a million ways to get the same photo, and I'm not gonna say like, "Oh, you're doing that wrong, and it's not the right way to do it." There might be a simpler way to do it or a more practical way of doing things. I'll see people here's an example. Like, I'll see people, like, put a softbox on and then bounce a light into a corner of a wall, when I'm like, you could just take the softbox off and still bounce it in the corner, and it would do the same. It probably actually work better because 'cause you're not blocking all the light. Uh,
Yeah, and you need, like, a tenth
uh,
of the power. So
right, exactly. So, like, there's things like that. I was like, "Yeah, you're still gonna get light. It's still gonna work. It's not incorrect. I just wouldn't necessarily do it that way." And that's, to each their own. I never want to, like, if someone asks me, "Hey, like, is it better to do it this way or this way? Then I'll tell them my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and troll people and tell them it's the wrong way to do something, uh, because it might be better. Honestly, there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I think I'll start doing that.
Yeah, so all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I don't know that there's like mistakes that I see people do. I I feel like TTL is a little overused personally. Not TTL, high speed sync. Sorry, TTL is actually super handy if you do it correctly. But yeah, high speed sync. I've never been a huge fan of it. Do the lights have it? Sure. Uh, do I use it sometimes? But I don't know. That's just me personally. I'd rather throw an ND filter on there and call it a day. Which I'm very excited. I don't often back like Indiegogo or Kickstarter type things, but Benro did one that's like the electric ND. Did you see that?
I haven't seen it, no.
Oh, it looks incredible. So the issue I have with ND filters is it's especially variable ones is there's no way to like meter because it's not a like one the dot is not actually a stop. It's kind of a non-quantifiable level of light or dark on the sunglasses on the camera, right? So this one, I was like, I'm surprised it didn't exist already, but it's literally it's an electronic ND filter that you can like tell it how many stops to go down. So it can be like, oh, I want it to be 5 stops. You just like push the button and it darkens it. It's almost like two-way mirror. Like, I mean, it's not really what it's like. That's how my brain thinks it is. It's kind of like almost like transition lenses that you can like tell it a certain amount of 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 light or dark. So
It's
yeah.
like one of these, sometimes you have these windows that basically
Yeah,
they just
I
I tell you
think it's like that,
I
but
tell you a super funny
but
story
it's
about that. Many years ago, I met my mom in Cologne in Germany, right? Uh, and it was like this very old-fashioned cafe house, right? And she goes, and so you're waiting, having cake and coffee as you do, and then she goes, "You have to check out the bathroom." And I'm like,
every good story starts with, "You gotta check out the
yeah,
bathroom."
exactly. Right. And I was like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, why would my mom say that to me?" And she goes, "No, no, no, you have to go to the bathroom." And I'm like, Yeah, okay, all right, fine." So I go to the bathroom, and then I walk in, and you can see all the toilet cubicles, and they're all glass. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I know Germans are a little bit more free in that respect, but that's maybe a little over the top, you know? I mean, I don't know if I I don't know if I wanna see that,
Yeah.
you know? Anyway, so I walk in, and as you lock the door, the whole thing just goes, "Bloop," and it's all
Yeah.
completely solidly white, and I'm like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
"It's nuts."
Similar technology, I think.
Yes, exactly. So that's where Benro got it from.
Yeah, 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 they went to the bathroom in Cologne and
Exactly. That's exactly what must have happened. Would be funny if it turned out that that's actually what happened.
Right, right. But yeah, so anyway, that's my opinion. High speed sync gets a little overused sometimes. But again, there's not that's not saying that it's not the right or wrong way to do it. It's just I like having a little more, I guess, being a little more analog. A lot of times I shoot with a camera that doesn't even have it, or I'll shoot with like what I call dummy trigger. That's kind of a universal. It doesn't do a high speed sync, doesn't do TTL, but it makes flash fire, and that's all I really need. Um, I just kind of like there's less room for potential things to go wrong. Less moving parts, if you will. But yeah, so that's just me. I mean, I don't. Yes, have I done high speed sync? Sure, there's a time and a place for it, but it's not my thing.
Luckily, I live in a part of the world where you very rarely need high-speed sync. I mean,
You got that perpetual softbox, right?
but yes, it is literally perpetual. It has been perpetual since the beginning of January. Right. So
I
not a
used to
problem.
live up in Alaska, and it's the same
No.
thing. There's like 1 week of sun that's not uh back to back.
Yeah.
But it's if when it's sunny, everybody appreciates it. Everybody sits there and everybody's outside. It can be 50 degrees and everybody's out there in shorts and t-shirts.
Oh, this is it. I mean, this is exactly right. You're absolutely right. This is the thing that I find fascinating about the UK, actually, or England. Well, not probably the UK in general. It's the thing that they seem to confuse the words hot and sunny. And it seems to mean the same thing. So when the sun comes out, it might be just about freezing. Everybody's out in shorts and t-shirt, and you go, "What's wrong with you guys?" I'm like wearing, my llama wool triple layer jumper thing. And everybody's like,
And you're probably more comfortable. So it's
"Yeah, exactly right." I don't know. Um, the one thing I was going to ask you, when it comes to like, I think when somebody's getting into setting up a portrait, business, I think people often think you have to develop your own personal style. I mean, is that important, or is that sort of a fallacy because the vast majority of clients might not necessarily hire you for your personal style. They just need a professional headshot, let's say. You know, do you have to become a Peter Hurley and create your own headshot style? Or are there other things that are way more important when you're setting yourself up um, in a portrait business or as a portrait
I
business?
I think it's important to have a style, but not necessarily adhere to it for everybody. And what I mean by that is, yeah, try like everybody's got a. I'm still trying to figure out my style. People are like, "Oh, I love your style." I was like, "Well, please tell me what that is, because I'm still figuring out what it is." Um, but I think I do. I gravitate towards certain things. Way of shooting, whether it's focal length or using color in my portraits. For my personal type stuff. Um, I would say, like, my style is probably very, bright, not neon necessarily, but typically on the brighter side. Uh, I like color. I like contrast, but not like underexposed. So it's, like, again, I'm still trying to figure out like what my style is. And I think that's still evolving. But every once in a while, I will get someone who will hire me and excuse me, that will say like, "Oh, like, we hired you because we saw your Instagram or something, and we love this style of shooting, and we want you to do that for us." Like, for instance, I had a LED, like, red light therapy, like, masks company that reached out, and they're like, "Hey, like, we love all your color you use. We love just everything that you create. It's kinda just this crazy looking weird stuff with some optical snoots and projectors, whatever." They're like, "We just wanna kind of lean into that. We want you to create something that you think will sell this product." So, like, that's a rare client, if I'm being honest. That's just kinda gives you full creative control. Dream client, sure, but they don't come off around very often. A lot of times, it's someone, let's say the realtor that needs a headshot or some photos to throw on a yard sign, and they need to kinda stick to what works with their industry. So being able to create something that they need. And that comes back to understanding the fundamentals of lighting and understanding how things work. So you can create something that might be outside of your typical style. So yeah, have a style, but having the knowledge and the know-how to create something that fits the client's needs from a if you're talking from a business standpoint, you can't just expect everybody to hire you for you. I think that's probably where the term starving artist came from, is people that didn't want to budge a little bit. So, it's yeah, it's not always the most fun, but realistically you have to be able to create something based on you know, a like a something that's given to you. So if you can't do that, you're probably not gonna get hired again.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, the thing, I think you do have to work. You have to be able to work to a brief. It's one of the lessons I've learned a long time ago was that in the beginning I used to overthink everything and I used to overdo everything. Like I used to way over edit things. Until I realized that actually, I'm not creating art here. I'm creating like commercial images that the client wants. So, if I spend 3 days editing this rather than 2 hours, I'm actually losing a lot of money because I'm not
Right.
getting
Yeah, for
anywhere.
sure. It's that's the thing is all the extra time spending fixing stuff that literally you're the only person that's going to notice it.
Yes, exactly.
Is
That's it.
but yeah, it's so yeah, I think like having a style, but being able to step outside of that based on your client's needs. And a lot of times we're running businesses here. Your client is the most important opinion. They're the ones that are paying the bills, and you kind of have to do what they ask. Again, in the branding side of things, I do kind of come along and I can kind of consult them into maybe steering them in a direction that fits me in my style a little bit more. But if it's not a good fit, I'm not gonna do that. And you have to kind of look at it as it's photography is amazing, and it's and I'm you know so fortunate and blessed to be able to do it every day, but it is a job still, and sometimes you have to do things in your job that aren't necessarily the most fun thing in the world. Yeah, I still get to take pictures of people. I still get that experience, which is a lot better than a lot of jobs. Uh, but it's not necessarily I wake up and I'm creating art every single day. I think you can find the art in everything, but it's not necessarily, you know, exactly the art that I would like to create, but it still happens and I still enjoy it. And I think that's the thing is that as long as I can differentiate that from here's my stuff and here's my client stuff, then we'll be okay.
Now, Jeff, you've just recently done imaging. You've done WPPI. What have you got coming up next?
Those are really the two big ones that I do usually. I don't do them every year. I try to. Uh, I do a lot of kind of uh what's the word? Like local chapters for PPA, Professional Photographers of America. So the next thing I've got is I'm going to New Hampshire and doing their kind of conference there. So it's smaller scale, just kind of the local stuff there. So I'll be teaching a branding and headshot class there. Um, but yeah, so I'll kind of travel around and do that a bit. I used to do a lot more workshops kind of on my own. It's a lot of work to do that, so I've started doing less. It's been a couple of years since I've done, like, a self-promoted workshop. I'll do a lot of one-on-one workshops, but yeah, it's I don't have anything really on the books. I've been meaning to kinda get out to the photography show at some point, but, I
Yeah,
need to I need a sponsor that can pay for it.
yeah,
So,
yeah. You absolutely have to.
it's,
It's a brilliant show.
yeah, I've heard it's great. So that's kind of the because I would like to kind of break into more of the not just the US market, it's from the teaching side of things. I It's a great opportunity for me to travel, because I can travel, but then I can also kind of work a little bit, a little work, little play. So yeah, so I would like to try and get out, get overseas a little bit. Um, but yeah, so photography show has been on my bucket list for a while. It just comes and goes, and I always forget to go. Uh,
Well,
so,
it's starting on Saturday.
I don't think I can make that happen.
That's the thing. And of course, by the time this episode comes out, the photography show would have already happened. So
Yeah,
anybody who was there and said hello, you know, um, very much appreciate it. Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being the guest on this week's Camera Shake podcast.
I appreciate it. It's been an amazing conversation, and we'll chat soon. Maybe I'll see you at the photography show next year.
Absolutely, yeah. Hop on a plane now. You can be there by Saturday.
Yeah, right. I could, we'll see, but yeah, I appreciate it, and we'll chat soon.
All right, folks, that is it for today. Huge thanks to Jeff Carpenter for joining us. Loads of great insights there, especially if you're interested in building a portrait photography business, working with branding clients, and really mastering lighting as part of your craft. But before you head off, let me point you to another episode I think you'll really enjoy. Go and check out episode 296, where I spoke with New York headshot photographer Pete Coco, where we also dive deep into portrait lighting, working with actors, and building a successful headshot business. If you enjoy what we do here on Camera Shake, don't forget you can support the show by picking up some Camera Shake merch or by buying us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/Camera Shake. You know, merch like this one, for example, which is it's very soft and comfortable. I love it. And for those of you listening to the audio version, did you know there's a full video version of this episode over on YouTube? You'll get the full visual experience and see the conversation as it unfolds. Quite literally over there. Just head over to YouTube and search for Camera Shake Podcast. And the thing's a good one, as they say over here. Anyway, if you're already on YouTube, drop us a comment, hit like, ring the bell, and share with a friend. That engagement really helps the show reach photographers all over the world. So thank you very much for listening and watching. And a new episode drops every Thursday, so make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, keep shaking things up in the world of photography. See you next Thursday.